I researched every single class in Black Desert Online to bring you this video. The tier list is based on 269 AP. This AP was chosen because it's good for new players as a goal to work towards, and for veteran players, they already have at least this much AP. The other criteria for the tier list is money per hour. Money per hour is influenced greatly by AP scaling, mobility, and the area of effect of your skills. The last thing I want to mention is that this tier list is not perfect. Although I interviewed several people, I asked hundreds of people in chat, as well as looking at garmoth.com to verify any opinions that were given for the tier list. There are still going to be errors in this tier list. With that in mind, let's get started. The first classes are the C tier classes. Awakening Kuno got a pretty big nerf to her main damage skill, but did not receive any buffs that were significant enough to compensate her for this loss. Draconian Succession released and was a fairly powerful class, but later got nerfed, and it got nerfed so much that it's now in B tier, unfortunately. Awakening Corsair and Succession Valkyrie have always been low tier classes, but because they didn't receive any big buffs comparatively to the other classes in this tier list, they have moved down in the tier list to C tier. B tier. In B tier, we start seeing a few classes that you'll recognize at grind spots, because they're actually not bad classes. I want to be very clear that any class in B tier or higher is it worth playing in seasons or any grind spot in the game for that matter. They are viable at every grind spot. The difference is they pull a little less trash loot and make a little less money per hour than your average class. Now, that's not to say there aren't exceptions here. Awakening Tamer, for example, does very well in Sakraya. Succession Corsair does very well at higher and grind spots with tanky monsters with her mermaid skills, but Succession Corsair does very poor with her regular sword skills. For Awakening Witch and Awakening Wizard, both these classes are extremely new player friendly and very fun because they have heals and they have magic, which is a very popular theme. Awakening Meiwa actually has extremely good mobility, but her AP scaling is very low, and because of this, we have her in B tier. You'll actually find that for a seasoned character, Meiwa Awakening does very well actually at the majority of early grind spots in the game. Moving on to A tier here, we have several classes you'll recognize as very good at some grind spots. An example of this would be Awakening Mystic. Awakening Mystic does extremely well at Gyven Underground. Another class that's very popular is Succession Dark Knight. It is very good in PvP and is very simple to play. Succession Ninja is a powerhouse of a class and is capable of putting out almost as much DPS as any other class in the game in PvE when played properly. Awakening Musa, similar to Awakening Meiwa, does very poor in PvE with AP scaling, but he has enough AP scaling to make him viable at grind spots like Kortuga, at Centaurs, at Akhman, and at Star's End if you have a lot of AP. He is capable of pulling 700 to 900 mil an hour at some of these in-game grind spots when he is played properly. Other classes that do well at in-game grind spots on here would be Awakening Warrior and Awakening Sorceress. Both these classes do well at grind spots where the mobs are very hard. An example would be Olin Valley, Ash Forest. Awakening Guardian, you might be surprised to see it's an A tier, but it is properly an A tier. She did receive some buffs recently, but the buffs were not big enough compared to the classes that are currently an A+ tier and higher. This is why she has moved down from her previous high A+ tier and S tier all the way down to A tier. A lot of people like saying that Awakening Dark Knight is actually bad in PvE, but this is not true. She actually does comparable damage to Succession Dark Knight, but she has a very big downside. Her cooldowns on her skills are all over the place. This makes the class very hard to play at in-game grind spots. If you're just playing seasons, you probably won't recognize this because most of the time you're one-shotting or two-shotting the mobs, and their cooldowns aren't really a problem for DK Awakening. Archer. This class is insane at Stars Inn and Aukman. Does phenomenal there. There have been some people who've been able to pull one bill consistently with Archer at Stars Inn. This doesn't mean that it's an S tier class, because a lot of our grind spots where the mobs are more tanky, he falls behind significantly. Moving on to A tier, or A plus tier. Alright, here we have classes you'll recognize as powerhouses. We have Shy, we have Awakening Striker, we have Succession Lawn, we have Succession Meiwa. Well, that's a little new. Succession Meiwa has recently moved up because her AP scaling is phenomenal. The more in-game you get, the better Succession Meiwa gets. She is a little frustrating to learn, but aside from after you've learned her, she does phenomenal at the majority of in-game grind spots. Succession Tamer is another one here you may be surprised by. With the pet buff they did, where the AP of the pet scales off the AP of the player, Succession Tamer got a massive buff. And so she does extremely well at any grind spot that has a lot of monsters. This would be like Sakraya Underground, or like Hex Sanctuary. She does phenomenal, again, at any grind spot where there are a bunch of monsters. Hellion aggroes additional monsters. So you can, instead of pulling 10 monsters, can pull, I believe, 20 monsters on Tamer Succession. For Shy, Shy is a go-to class for groups, but she actually has some of the highest DPS in the game. This is because some of the newer abilities they've added to her. So if you're a new player who wants a easy to play class that has heals and reasonably good DPS, Shy is probably the pick for you. Succession Warrior, although not really known well in the North American server, is actually a very good class and has gained a little bit of fame recently in the EU server. If you're looking for a class that has a sword in board, look no farther. Warrior is the class for you. Succession Musa. I really don't like this class, but they buffed him so much. He was temporarily the best class in PVE. After his nerf, he moved down from triple S plus tier down to a more reasonable A plus tier. He has a weird playstyle though. Basically, his AP scaling is the best in the game. There's no class that does more damage than Succession Musa. But when he's properly geared for a grind spot, he actually gets outperformed by the majority of other A tier, A plus tier, and S tier classes. Musa is a class you want to take to hard grind spots where you're under geared for. If you're looking to go to Ash Forest with as little gear as possible, Musa Succession may be the class for you for this. Awakening Sage is an extremely good class for all Elvia grind spots, especially the Serendia ones. He's very good because he has big AoEs, burst mobility, and when you combo that with an Elvia weapon, his slightly lower than average AP scaling really allows his AoEs to shine. Now, Succession Sorceress recently got a new Magnus skill. All classes did get a Magnus skill, but Sorceress takes her to the next tier. This would normally be an A tier class, but because of her new Magnus skill, this has really pushed Sorceress Succession to the next tier. Last but not least, the S tier classes, the best of the best. We have Succession Hashashin, Succession Berserker, Awakening Nova, and Succession Striker. Succession Hashashin actually has very good AP scaling, good AoEs, and his mobility is good enough to get him from pack to pack. Succession Berserker has the best mobility in the game, hands down, but to compensate for this, he has slightly lower than average AP scaling. And if you look at Awakening Nova, she has the best of all worlds. She has okay AoEs, she has very good mobility. The downside is she's a very hard class to play. And the other class I want to mention here is Striker. I avoided talking about Striker and A plus tier intentionally. Striker Succession actually does more damage than Striker Awakening. Contrary to popular belief, he still is stronger than Awakening Striker. But when you start becoming overgeared for grind spots like Serendia, Elvia, and Sakraya in lower and grind spots, it's better to change to Awakening Striker. Thus, he's become very popular in this recent year. So, if you outgear the grind spot, change to Awakening Striker, you'll have bigger AoEs, better mobility, and it's a much more fun class in my opinion. Now, with that in mind, that concludes the tier list, but I have a little extra something here for you. This tier list is based on as close as possible facts that I could find on the internet, my own conclusions, talking to hundreds of people in chat, and streamers. But it doesn't include how fun the classes are. So, here are a few classes that I personally find very fun. These classes would be good for a season pick if you're looking for a class that's both fun and exciting to play. Another thing that is not mentioned on the tier list is how hard classes are. We find classes like Awakening Nova, Ninja Succession, Awakening Sorceress are very difficult classes to play. For some people this can be very exciting because they want a challenge, but for other people they want to avoid these hard classes because it makes their hands hurt, or they have arthritis in their hands. So with this in mind, this concludes my tier list for Black Desert Online. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you have found this helpful. Let me know in the comments and try to be kind because I know we're going to have some negative comments. Again, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.